that I know of before the agreement, is that possibly saying it's needed back? No? Is it always right?
It's working.
Yeah, no, just sorry. Let it turn on. Let's turn it off. I think you'll be synced with it.
There may be a sync button on that.
Don't make me come. While we're waiting for the last few folks to come in, Jonathan's going to get batteries, unless anybody has a couple of double A's. On such small things, democracy falls apart. You know? But talk among yourselves, and we'll figure this out. It may not be the batteries, and if it isn't the batteries that fixes it, unless somebody wants to come and tinker with our system. I'm looking at you, Paul. And we'll just have to go old school, I guess. But we'll give Jonathan a few minutes. Yeah, it got it solved.
He doesn't want to sit with me. I want to sit over there.
With the voters' permission, I think what I'd like to do is begin with the pledge, and that will give Jonathan a little more time to get back here to see if we're going to go old school tonight or with the benefit of electricity. So if you would all stand, we will all say the pledge. And go. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Bliss, the moderator of this meeting. And we'll have an opportunity to choose a moderator in a few moments. Before we commence with the meeting, I am standing again for a moderator position. That's how it works in our system. Just maybe a few words of housekeeping, I guess starting with the basic things. I'm going to ask you as a body to give your approval to my asking Mr. Joe Fromberger to once again be our parliamentarian. As we always say, Joe has forgotten more about parliamentary procedure than I will ever know. So in the event that we get into trouble, Joe will kind of help us stay on the straight and narrow. So if that's okay with everyone, we'll do that. Secondly, this is an obvious point, but I'll make it anyway. It's first of all, it's wonderful to see so many here tonight. This is really an amazing turnout. I don't know, Jeanette, have you had a chance to do a head count?
No, I've written them, but I
all right, but I would say we're closing in on a record number of folks for the last couple of years anyway. It's a great turnout. It should be obvious, but again, I'll say that if you are not a resident of Andover, in other words, if you're not registered to vote here, we welcome you. You're welcome to listen and ask questions and make comments. You are obviously not able to vote on town affairs. And we pretty much stick to the honor system with that, so we hope you will abide by that. The other thing that I think, given that Jonathan is looking a little more frustrated here than I wanted to see, and and I'm suspecting we are going to go old school, that
I was working half an hour ago.
I think it'll be really important, particularly as we get started, for folks to, the first time and maybe for the second time that they have a question or comment, that they stand and state their name. I can't remember. Oh, nice job.
Success.
Jonathan Steve. Oh, it's off. Whoops. Maybe Jonathan has to run the meeting.
I'm going to take that applause back.
It's sending from there, but not from here. All right, well, we're going to forge ahead. We traditionally start our meetings with acknowledgement of the folks who are Andover residents and particularly longtime residents, but not exclusively, who have passed in the preceding year. I want to particularly bring your attention to the fact that this year's town report is dedicated to Edwin Bentley, a lifetime Andover resident, longtime select board member, took many positions in town, served the town well for many, many years, was actually one of my predecessors in this position. So we remember Ed with honor and fondness. I want to ask the body at this point to just simply say the names of people who are Andover residents who have passed in the past year. And once we've heard all the names, we'll just have a moment of silence, and then we'll continue with our meeting. So, names of those who passed.
Bill Carranza.
Bill Carranza.
Gordon Payne.
Gordon Payne.
Diana Johnson.
Mrs. Johnson. Thank you all. The first order of business on our agenda, on our warning tonight, is to elect a town moderator for a term of 1 year, ending on June 30th, 2025. Position currently held by myself, John Bliss.
Mr. Moderator,
Joe.
I would like to nominate John Bliss.
John Bliss has been nominated. Is there a second? Scott Kendall seconds. Are there other nominations? Joe, would you like to do
If there
your...
are no other nominations, Mr. Moderator, I move that nominations be closed and that the clerk cast one ballot for John Bliss as moderator.
And remind us, Joe, is it necessary to get the assent of the body, or can you just direct the body to...
A vote is necessary.
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you, Francis. Item number 2, to elect all town officers required by law. By the way, can you hear me in the back? Okay. Just holler if you can. To elect all town officers required by law. What I'm going to do, we're going to start with our position of town clerk. And then there are a couple of potential changes on the part of the select board. I'm going to read those positions and then ask the current officers to explain what they would like to do. So we have town treasurer for 1 year term currently held by Jeanette Hayes. Let's discuss and vote on that issue, then we move to the select board. Jeanette Hayes is currently our town treasurer. We have nominations.
I nominate Jeanette.
Jerry nominates Jeanette. Is there a second?
I second it.
We have a second over here. Are you getting this, Jeanette?
I am, thank you.
Okay. Do we have other nominations?
Mr. Moderator,
Go.
if there are no other nominations, I move that nominations be closed and that the clerk cast one ballot for Jeanette Haight as town treasurer.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. So we have now 3 select board positions, and I'll read them off. A select board member for a 3-year term currently held by Susan Leader. Select board member for a 1-year term currently held by Robin Trask. Select board member for a 1-year term currently held by Richard Griswold. So why don't Susan, Robin, and Richard just raise your hands for those who don't know. All right. Select board, would you like to explain?
I could.
Okay.
I very much enjoy being on the select board, and hopefully it's a wonderful working team. And I think we're doing good work on behalf of the town, and I think we're having fun doing it too. The position that I'm holding now, if someone would be so kind as to nominate me when the time comes, I would like to run for the 1-year select board post. And Robin,
I would like
Yeah.
to run for the 3-year. And I agree with we are, I feel like a good working team, so I actually would encourage you all to vote for all of us. I think we're a good team. I hope that you do.
So are there questions from the voters? So we're not changing personnel, we're changing positions.
well, assuming we're reelected.
Do you have opponents running for your seat? Mr. Moderator,
Joe?
for the 3-year select board member term, I nominate Robin Trask.
Joe has nominated Robin Trask for the 3-year position, changing from a 1-year to a 3. Do we have a second?
I'll second Jill.
Jill Pons seconds. Other nominations?
If there are no other nominations, Mr. Moderator, I would move that nominations be closed and that Robin Trask be elected for a 3-year term on the select board.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Open to further nominations for the previously described position.
Nominate Sue Leader for 1 year.
Paul Stump nominates Susan Leader for a 1-year position. Scott Kendall seconds. There are other nominations.
If there are no other nominations, Mr. Moderator, I move that nominations be closed and that I have a senior moment. That a person be elected to a 1-year term on the select board.
I think we know what you meant.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And finally, the select board member for a 1-year term position currently held by Richard Griswold, so that would be no change. Correct, Richard?
Does he still need to be nominated?
Yes.
Okay, I'll nominate him.
All right. Brooke nominates Richard. Scott seconds. We're getting pretty good at this.
Usual motion, Mr. Moderator.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you for your patience, friends, and again, thanks to the Select Board for their service and for being willing and able to stand for another bout. The next position here is a position of auditor for a 3-year term, currently held by Wendell Perkins. Is Wendell here? Yes. Hi. And you are wishing to be re-upped, Wendell?
Yes.
So we need a nomination and a second, and then other nominations if it's the will of the voters.
I nominate Wendell Perkins.
Wendell Perkins has been nominated.
I'll second it.
Jerry seconds. We have other nominations.
Mr. Moderator, if there are no further nominations, I move that nominations be closed and the clerk cast one ballot for Wendell Perkins.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Wendell. And by the way, I apologize if you raise your hand to make a motion of a second and I don't know who you are. I pretty much know everybody here, but as Joe just said, we're all liable to have senior moments. So. I was looking right at Linda and I didn't say her name. Apologies. Known her all my life. Not yet.
Very good point.
She's quick. Auditor for 2 years remaining of a 3-year term, position currently vacant. Do the voters require any explanation of that, or does the select board or the clerk want to give? Jeanette, why don't I give that to you?
So we do have a current vacancy with the Board of Auditors. There are 3 positions, and if there isn't anyone interested in stepping into that role, then it will be up to the select board to appoint someone in the future.
So do we have nominations to fill this 3-year term? 1 year remaining on the 3-year term. Excuse me, 2 years remaining on the 3-year term. Nominations. If I understand you right, Jeanette, it is appropriate for the board to appoint if we do not get a nomination tonight. So
That's correct.
it'd be wonderful to get a nomination from the floor, but we're not. The ship is not going to go around.
Can I throw my hat in the ring?
Who are you, sir?
Bill Hespy,
Okay.
new resident. I have a long background in auditing and controls and financial matters. I've become a full-time resident here in Andover about 3 years ago. I live on 4262 East Hill Road. There's a few folks in here that know who I am.
So Bill has expressed no interest in running for this position. I hear nothing so far that would disqualify you, but we need a nomination from the floor. Yes.
I would like to nominate Bill Hespy for auditor.
Barry has nominated Bill Hespy. Is it Espy or Hespy?
Hespy.
Hespy. Thank you. Need a second?
I'll second.
Jerry is seconded. Other nominations?
If not, all those in... I'm getting confused. If there are no other nominations, Mr. Moderator, that I move that nominations be closed and that the nominee be elected for the 2-year remaining term as auditor.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Bill. Position of first constable for a 1-year term currently held by Lucas Trask. Raise your hand again, Lucas. Lucas Trask, our constable. And it's my understanding that you wish to run again. Okay, so we need the nomination, a second, and then other nominations.
I'll nominate him.
Brooke has nominated Lucas.
I'll second it.
Jerry has seconded. Are there other nominations?
Mr.
If there are no
Moderator, if there are no further nominations, I move that nominations be closed and the clerk cast one ballot for Lucas Trask for constable.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you, Lucas. The next position is the collector of delinquent taxes for a 1-year term. That position is currently held by Jeanette Hayden.
Mr. Moderator, I would nominate Jeanette Haight.
Joe has nominated Jeanette. Jerry has seconded. Other nominations?
If there are no other nominations, I will move that nominations be closed and that Jeanette Haight be appointed the collector of delinquent taxes for 1 year.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The next position is the Cemetery Commissioner for a 3-year term, currently held by Robert Hale. Is Robert here? He's not here. Are we aware if he would seek to run again? We're presuming? To serve again? He's not here to defend himself, so Jean has nominated Robert. Scott has seconded. Other nominations? This is an easy one, so.
The usual motion, Mr. Moderator.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The final in this segment is sexton for a 1-year term for the town, currently held by Hank Mountain. We have a nomination. Hank, you wish to serve again?
Yes.
Okay. Affirmative.
Nominated
Jill has nominated Hank. Scott has seconded. Are there other nominations?
If there are no other nominations, Mr. Moderator, I'll make the usual motion.
The usual motion has been made. You all know what it is. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you for your service once again, Hank, and thank you all for being willing to stand or stepping in where needed. Because we got a little confused at the beginning with the sound system, I forgot to do something, or I skipped over something which I wanted to do at the beginning. Regina Downer, who represents my community nurse, is here. She brings a very interesting and timely service to the area, and she currently has some patients and clients in Andover. I'm going to, with the voters' permission, I'm going to ask Regina to stand right where she is, tell you a little bit about what she does, because she has requested some funds from us this year, and I thought it would be good to let her speak about what she does. Is that okay with the voters?
Excuse my back. So 5 years ago, when I realized that Vermont is the second state in our country with the aging population, just getting more and more aged.
Thanks for that.
I know, and I'm right there with you. But as a pediatric nurse practitioner, the need for pediatrics was not as great as the need for geriatrics. And so my caseload covers pretty much 6 towns, including Andover, and I've been doing this for 5 years, and none of my patients pay for services. This is totally donation funded, and we've been squeaking by. Every year, the board looks at it in November and says, you've got this much money left, but we do it. And I am so proud of this agency that provides care and advocacy. If you try to manage the healthcare system, you know that sometimes you need a guardian angel at your side and somebody who can make those calls and make things happen for you, and that's what we really do try to do. It's just me. I work pretty much every day of the week, and I have a part-time nurse for 10 hours who works with me. We're currently serving 4 clients in the Andover town, and I am proud and honored to say that Ed was one of my favorites, and I'll just tell you that on my second visit to him, after he had told me he loves double stuffed Oreos, okay, and let's get in there with some double stuffed Oreos, and we sat outside in the chairs outside the garage, and he ate them, and I said, whoa, you thinking about maybe sharing those? And he thought about it for quite a while before he actually handed the bag over. It was my honor to take care of him, and also to take care of Norma, and I know she wouldn't mind me telling you that. I'm going to give you one tip for healthcare. If you are looking at Medicare or thinking about the time when you will be ready for Medicare, or you are thinking of switching your Medicare plan because you have listened to the ads on TV that tells you about the Medicare Advantage plans, which will bring meals to your house, a dentist to your house, travel time to your doctors and all of that, please don't change your plan. The Medicare plan that is called Advantage is really the Medicare Disadvantage plan, and I am telling you that because nobody else is going to tell you that. So if you're thinking of changing your plan, and believe me, we've unraveled this for 3 other clients, do not do it. And if you want to change your plan and you're thinking about something more affordable, please just give me a call. I don't sell insurance, but I work with people who know this inside out, and they are telling me, tell your people not to change their plans. So I'm going to leave some cards in the front. I thank you for donating this year, and I hope to be able to see you next year. Thanks very much.
I need to ask Jeanette, what page in the annual report describes the donation made by the town to my community nurse?
It's simply a line item in the budget under appropriations.
Okay, all right. And how much did we, in fact, appropriate this year?
$800 maybe?
Okay. We believe that number was $800. We think it was 5.
My letter's not in here, but I think if you look at the book, it looks like 5.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 5.
It's 5. Yeah, Jean.
I've worked with Gina and some in OR, and I'm not saying one for this for other people, but I get a lot of calls from people on our road or people who have a medical issue, and they'll call me. And sometimes I'll give Regina a call and say, we need some help to unravel this situation. She's fabulous. Please. Donate.
Well, thank you for joining us and explaining what it is you do, and thanks to the voters for being patient with that little switch here tonight. I thought it was good to get you in before everybody gets hangry at the end of the meeting, and probably also good health care too, because once we get to the end and everybody wants cookies, then that's a different deal. So now we're on to article number 3 of your warning, and it is generally a pretty straightforward one. Shall the voters authorize the town treasurer, pursuant to the relevant statutes, to collect current year taxes? Does anyone need any explanation about what that means or clarification?
Mr. Moderator.
Joe.
I would move that we adopt Article 3 as written.
Joe has moved that we adopt Article 3 as written. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Barry has seconded. Any further discussion of the article or clarification? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article carries. Here I'm going to turn things over to Richard. This is article number 4, explanation of fiscal year 2024-25, the budget, including the select board's recommendations to do a bunch of things that Richard will explain to you in just a moment in terms of how to fund. Richard, we're working without a net and without a mic, so
can everybody hear me?
Speak up.
Yep. So I'll just read through the explanation of the budget. Last year, 22-23, the total income was $1,078,897.79. The total expenses for the town was $1,062,468.89, which left a surplus of $16,428.90. The select board's recommendation for that surplus was to split the amount equally between the highway and bridge fund and the capital equipment fund.
Can everybody hear? And do you need any further explanation, or do you have questions from any place in the room for Richard or the select board? Yes, in the back.
Was today's proclamation on federal aid available for the
change the way the surplus is allocated?
This is the surplus from the previous year. It's just an explanation of what was done. The next line on the budget is the year that we're in, the 23-24.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
But good point, and there may need to be some explanation.
And I think we'll
about
get into that when we
to
talk
that. So-
about the
Okay.
deficit and things like that.
Other questions or points of clarification? I see and hear none. Do we have a motion to adopt the article? Yes, Mark.
I move that we adopt the article.
Mark has moved that we adopt the article. Do we have a second? Scott has seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor of adopting, did we get? Yes, this is, this is Article 4. Adopting Article 4 as written and explained, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The article carries.
Do you want me to continue to read?
Yeah, if you would, that'd be good. We now move on to the substance of Article 5, etc.
So this current year, the 23-24 budget, the total income is $1,066,178, and expenses are the same. And currently, as we sat as of January 25th of 24, the total income for the town was $1,098,487.08. And our expenses to date are $1,347,195.78, which equals a budget deficit of $248,708.70 due to flood repair expenses.
Is that audible to everyone? Is everyone here? Any questions? Give us that deficit number again, Richard.
$248,708.70.
248 plus.
That's equipment expense?
What's that?
Equipment expense?
This is the entire amount spent by the town, including flood repair and our to date of the budget.
So it's basically maintenance?
No. We've spent $800,000 plus on flood repair, so it's wiped out almost every.
So the flood repair is what drives the
completely drives it. Yes.
I say hand back here, Mark, Jim, and
The deficit accounts for state and or federal compensation or not?
We have received no compensation to date.
After a request.
Yeah, they've done nonstop paperwork and legwork for months and months and months.
So it's not been denied either?
No, the first stages are approved and it just has to get through the pipeline, which we don't know where and when that. Jeanette and Chris can shed light on that a little bit, but it's in phases. Everything with federal, we believe, is in phases.
And what was the amount requested?
It's not. It's reporting the amount spent.
I see.
So each phase has its own amount, but yeah, Jeanette will be able to.
So, we spent all the money that was in our highway bridge fund for flood repairs. We spent all the money that was in our tax stabilization fund for flood repairs. And in addition to that, we've spent over $500,000 straight out of the general fund, which is why you see a deficit in the current year budget. I have been submitting paperwork since last September. Each project is considered its own road. So each project/road has a 30-question form that I go through and document all of our own labor, our own equipment use, the materials we purchased, contractors that we used, and then do a spreadsheet to accompany that, along with photos, GPS locations, and any other details that FEMA wants. We just barely got our first two projects obligated. Those two projects I submitted last September, so that's the kind of time frame we're looking at. We'll probably get about $55,000 as our first round of this reimbursement, and that's for Middletown Road and what was considered category B, which was the first 3 days of emergency work that we did. I have submitted reimbursement for Schmidt Road, which is over $200,000. Military Road, which was almost $200,000. That's in the second stage of review. I have submitted for West Andover Road, which was through the Federal Highway Program. That money we're going to get 100% of, and that's actually going through more quickly because it's through the state. So I expect to sign a grant agreement for that later this week, so that will give us back $240,000, which will obviously get our budget back where it should be, or at least close. I've done 9 other roads, and again, they're all in various stages of review by FEMA, and it's just a long, long process.
Yeah, Jean.
Based on past experience, Jeanette, we've been through this before, I know. Is the expectation that we'll be reimbursed for 100% of what we put out from FEMA? That's not state related.
Yeah, I'm expecting that for a couple of reasons. At first, FEMA was saying because of the total of that particular flood, we would only get 75% reimbursement. The state then had funds, and they will give us 12.5% of the 25% we were supposed to come up with. Once the amount of the project obligated gets to a certain higher threshold, it's possible we'll see 100%. I expect to get 100% back of what we spent our total. So all those things I told you of all places the money came from, we spent on $938,000.
We should give Jeanette an honorary CPA.
Other questions from the voters, who I don't need to remind you are in this case also the taxpayers?
I just have a quick question. So getting back the west of Andover essentially balanced the deficit for the 240, and then the remainder of that money would refill the tax stabilization account, the general fund, and all that. So that'll just slowly get added back in.
So what we'll do is, as we get it back, it's going to get added back to the general fund first. So basically, add back in reverse order of where we took it out of.
Good.
So that's the goal. Yes.
Other questions? I'm not seeing any hands, but Susan.
Well, I think it's worth noting that we've had to, along with probably every other town in Vermont, we've had to apply for a loan that from the Vermont Bond Bank, because what are we going to do? FEMA was like, I never had any experience with this. I imagined that FEMA would act much more quickly, but so we're sort of in waiting.
How much, I know others know this, I don't have the number, how much did we end up having to?
Well, I don't know.
We are not approved.
It's not approved
Not
yet.
approved, okay.
We'll know till the 15th month.
In the middle of March, we find out.
So how much did you apply for?
The full amount we could, the $900,000.
$900,000.
But there's only $16 million available to
Yeah, I
me
know.
right now. So
Everybody
you have to try.
Everybody else wants a piece of it.
Is that an interest-free loan, or is that?
It's very low. What was it?
3%.
Yeah, it was.
Did everybody hear that? So that there's been about a $900,000 loan applied for. They've not heard, so we haven't gotten it yet. Very low interest, around
He said
3%, so relatively decent. Other questions or comments? There's some big numbers. So this is Article 5. We need a motion to adopt and approve.
Mr. Moderator, I would move that the proposed budget of $1,136,327.92 be approved.
Joe has moved for the adoption of the article. Do we have a second? Mark Schuman has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We move on to Article number 6. Shall the voters authorize payment of real and personal property taxes in 3 installments, with the due dates being August 15th, November 1st, and March 1st, by delivery to the town office postmarked on or before the date. And Jeanette has made a notation here that this is not a change to our current procedures. It's just simply asking you to affirm that this is what you'd like, or to make an additional motion for an option. So do we have a motion and then discussion? Or questions?
Moderator.
Yes, Joe.
I would move that we adopt the article as written.
Do you have a second? Gary is seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The article carries. Article number 7. Shall the town change the date of its annual town meeting in 2025 to Monday, March 3rd, 2025, pursuant to the relevant statutes? If the voters do not want Monday, they would need to vote no on this item, this proposal. And if disapproved, then make a motion for a different day. So we need a little, maybe some history on this, because there was a series of unfortunate events that occurred. I don't know who's best to set up to tell that story. Maybe Jeanette, you remember it well?
Well, we had a really big snowstorm last year. We had town meeting on Saturdays for quite a number of years, 10 years or more. And it was supposed to be on Saturday last year, and we had a snowstorm and had to postpone it until Tuesday. And at that meeting on Tuesday last year, the voters voted to have it today, Monday.
And just for people who may not be familiar with the process, what happened on that Saturday was really dumping down snow. And a number of us got in our trucks and came here, and we made the decision that it would be a better use of people's time and serve the interests of the voters, you the voters and taxpayers, better if we were to postpone. The idea was not to do something sneaky, but just to simply say, we're not going to get good turnout, and you, the voters and taxpayers, are not going to represent it. So that's why we moved to it was the Monday. That
We did it on that Tuesday.
We did it on
Actual
Tuesday.
town meeting day.
Right. And at that point, there was a motion made, am I telling the story correctly, to have it, to not go back to the Saturday, which, as Jeanette said, had been traditional for years and years and years. But to have it
Prior to that, John, we had it on Monday for many more years than we ever had it on Saturday. So we went back to the way.
It's all in the minutes.
Well, some of us are old enough to remember when it was at 7 o'clock at night in the town clerk's, the basement of the town clerk's office.
And it used to be on Tuesday.
Okay, so so what's going to happen? So what's going to happen, and I've checked in with our parliamentarian, and if I get it wrong, you're going to set me right, though, is that we need to vote this article up or down. So we need a motion and then a discussion, and if it appears as if there's going to be a good discussion and perhaps a different way you, the voters, want to do things, then we'll have to have a second vote. So with another proposal. So yes, Mark.
Just a good time for a point of clarification.
Sure.
I was wondering if the proposed date includes or will include a meeting time that is more inclusive of potential attendance and stipulate such.
In my reading of the warning, we do not have a time.
Right.
Is that everyone else's understanding? We don't have a time at this point. So, Joe, correct me here. We would have to amend the motion after we had voted it up or down, or voted it down, right?
First of all, I would suggest, Mr. Moderator, that if the time needs to be included, a motion needs to be made to amend Article 7 to include the time certain. And then that would be a vote separate from whether to adopt the article itself. A vote would be on the amendment.
So what you're saying is, we amend the article, we vote, count the votes, and then
vote the article as amended.
Okay. Are you all clear on this? All right. Sorry, I didn't think I'd have service. I mean, we barely have electricity. Why don't we have service? Yeah, Nick.
John, we didn't set a time last year. I think we left it up to the discretion of the select board to set the time.
Okay.
I think that's how we did that last year.
And I'm speaking here, so the point, Mark, was, Nick makes the point that we did not set a time last year. We left that was left up to the discretion of the select board. Again, I'm not acting as a moderator here, but my observation is this is pretty darn good turnout. So you got it right, or pretty close to right in terms of timing. Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, I'd make a motion to approve that as written and leave it up to the moderator, to the select board to
Okay, so Jeff has moved that we vote Article 7 in the affirmative. Scott has offered a second. Is there any further discussion? So what we'll do is, just a minute, Manny. What we'll do is, when we vote, we'll do a voice vote first, and if it is the perception of us all that it's close, we'll then follow with a very carefully taken hand vote, show of hands. I hope we don't have to go to a Australian ballot, but we certainly can, if that's what we need to do. Yes, Matt.
I feel like I've had more than my say on this, but also it seems like I may be the only person in the room who feels this way, so I feel compelled to speak. Last year, it was exceptional. A Saturday meeting was changed to the middle of the day, and the people who couldn't accommodate that couldn't attend. The situation is slightly different. The people who were aware, and I know there are people who weren't aware that the meeting was changed to Monday night, maybe had a chance to ask for time off. But as I said, a lot of people weren't aware. It's our responsibility as the people in this room, I think, to think about the people who aren't here. John, you think this is a good turnout? I remember at least one meeting when we were in the church where that room was packed. There were people all along the walls. There had to be at least a third as many people that day, which I believe was a Saturday morning when the furnace broke, than there are here now. The population of Andover has increased in the past 10 years. The average age of the residents has gone down 10 years. It used to be the average age was 51, it's now 41. If we're not seeing those young people here, maybe it's because they're at work. And it's easy for me to think about the people who aren't here, because I know my husband would be here if he didn't have a mandatory training this afternoon. And he was willing to take time off, thanks to Robin, who put out a personal plea to him to show up. He wasn't planning to show up because he couldn't believe that people who work on Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you expect them to take time off from work, unpaid time off from work, if they can get it. A lot of us, I work remotely. My clients are all over the country, really all over the world. They don't know what town meeting day is. They're not giving me a day off because it's town meeting day in Vermont. And I would like all of you to please think about those people who couldn't be here today to vote on this topic because they're at work.
Thanks, Maddie. Mark?
The reason I brought up somewhat obnoxiously my question about the time being stipulated in the proposal is because it's especially important in a communal sense to think of those who for no reason other than circumstances that they find themselves in to be unable to participate in basic communal democratic practices. We wouldn't want to brag about that, and we wouldn't want to say, when given an opportunity to change, a well-intended, but with some nefarious consequences practice, that we didn't take that opportunity to make that practice better. And so I would support a friendly amendment, if acceptable, to make it at a time such as 6:30 p.m. so that the good number that have shown up because of their interest might be even greater.
So just to be clear, Mark, you would suggest the amendment would be date and day the same, correct, to stipulate a time which you feel is more inclusive.
Correct.
Okay.
Potentially more.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a question or observation. We have quite a few young people here tonight at 5:30. If the meeting is held at 6:30, that puts their bedtime at least an hour later, which might infringe upon their bedtime, which they need.
Or mom.
I see at least one mom smiling and nodding.
Yeah, last year's meeting was 2 hours and 37 minutes long. Right. So that would put you home around 9:30, 10 o'clock.
That's kind of late for young people.
For school
to
night.
stay. For school night.
And old people.
Yeah.
People would get up at 4 a.m.
In the past, we had it on a Monday night, and we changed it to a Saturday to accommodate young people.
Right.
And it wouldn't infringe upon that. So we'd get more turnout. Now, we find out the average age went from 51 or 52 to 41. So that gives us more kids that we have to worry about.
What's our estimate as to the number of people who are here tonight? Do we have 120 people in the room?
80. We have historical records of years past.
That we have more than Yeah.
What, 3 years ago, we had 8 people? Huh? 8 people.
On the day of the storm, yeah.
No. No. There was 8 people there. There was more board than there was people that attended. Everybody was deadly sick. They, was scared shitless. Because there was nobody here. So they have to, you're going to get some people who don't want to have it on Saturday. It never should have been changed from Saturday. We got to vote on it again, one way or the other.
Well, you are right. There's been a motion made and seconded. Did you get the motion and second? Okay, it was Jeff and Scott. Any further discussion? Again, we're going to listen for the vote and make a fair determination as to whether that is the will of the body.
Well, I think Hank made a good point another time. He said that having it on Saturday gave you plan B if you had a snowstorm and you couldn't have it on Saturday. So I meant, yeah, you could have it on Monday, but so if you couldn't have it on Saturday, you have it on Monday if you had another storm on Saturday. But I personally prefer Saturday. But that's my personal opinion.
And still on Monday.
Well, this is your opportunity to vote. And again, we're going to be careful. We're going to listen. We're going to count. If we think this is close, we'll do it in such a way that we'll get everyone's voice heard. Yes, Jeff?
Yeah, that's probably, I don't think that the time or the day really makes a whole lot of difference. Our attendance is always based on what's going on in town. This year, the select board has done a great job. I think it's, we've got a good attendance, but usually we get a huge attendance when there's something. Yeah, somebody comes in. So, I don't think it's the time. If you want to come, you'll come.
Could you clarify then, if you vote no now,
Right.
you're opening the floor to a different day
So,
to be suggested?
yeah, the article is, shall the town change the date of its annual town meeting?
2 months.
In 2025 to March 3rd. So that would be
From town meeting day. That's what the law is, from town meeting day to
right.
the Monday before.
Right. So if you vote yes, then we will be meeting on Monday, March 3rd next year. If a majority of folks vote yes, we will be meeting on Monday, March 3rd.
And if they vote no, we're meeting on Tuesday until somebody makes a motion to change it again.
Yeah, I think what happens is you vote the motion up or down, and if this motion fails, if you the voters don't support Article 7, then I entertain a motion from the floor. It gets a second. There's a discussion. This is your opportunity to make a number of different suggestions. Yeah, Brooke.
Can you clarify that this motion is just as written, the time is not included, right? That amendment didn't get thrown into the mix?
That's a very good question. Joe, let's see if we can untangle this. Mark made a request that we amend the motion and vote up or down on Article 7 with the addition of a time.
Right. The motion that was made and seconded, Mark made the friendly amendment, which was not accepted by the maker of the motion. So the motion before us is the original motion without containing a time.
Okay. Does everyone understand that? And Mark, is that okay with you? Okay. So once again, we're voting on this Article 7. So a yes vote means that we will adopt Article 7 and vote and meet next year for town meeting on March the 3rd. A no vote means we're back to the drawing board, and then we entertain new suggestions and ideas about a meeting time and date for next year.
I agree.
Yeah.
So if you don't really care, you'll come either time, then you don't vote. So to give those people who have a preference the ability to speak out. Is that fair?
You should always vote.
I'm not going to tell you not to. Finally, any last points that have not already been made? Thank you so much for your patience. I know this seems like a lot of work for something relatively simple, but I think everybody's made incredibly good points from Maddie to Hank to Jill to Jeff. This is about how we get participation in our town process. And the reality is we don't actually know why people show up. And I think Jeff is probably the closest in the sense that people show up when there's a reason, a compelling reason to come. Taxes are going to go up, there's big stuff happening in town, or there have been big stuff happening and people are annoyed. I think Scott might have used another word. I'll use another word.
I didn't use that word. That was the same right here.
I just got one more thing?
Yeah.
I feel that Saturday is as much of a work day around here as a Monday or Tuesday is. I personally work 8 to 4 every Saturday. So if you piggyback off what Jeff said, if you want to come, you're going to make the time to come. It's not in the middle of the day during the week like a lot of other towns. We do try our best to accommodate as many people. It's just how
Brooke and then one
This
more.
is less serious, but I think if you would have advertised that trays of cookies were going to be here, I think everyone in town would be here.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm Sandy Forbes.
Hi, Sandy.
I was just going to say, if you know a year in advance that it's Monday, March 3rd at 5 o'clock, then you know you either want to be here or you don't, or you're not able to, which is understandable, but you know a year in advance. So put it on a calendar, I guess.
So I'm going to state the motion again and ask for vote. We're going to do it deliberately. And remember, we want to count the votes correctly, and we also want to respect the voice of the minority. And we've heard some minority positions today. Make sure you vote your conscience. All right, so the article is, shall the town change the date of its annual town meeting? We've heard you speak this before. A yes vote means that we will meet on town meeting on Monday, March 3rd. It's been, the motion was made and seconded by Jeff and Scott. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay.
A request of show of hands.
Peter has requested a show of hands, and I emphatically agree. Would the select board please stand and assist me along with that in counting? So we're going to count carefully. I'm going to ask for all those in favor first, and ask you to keep your hands in the air. It's going to, exercise your shoulder muscles until we get everybody counted. Jeanette, are you prepared to make? Can you make the? Have you got something to make a note with? Okay. So I'm not going to restate the article. I've done that enough. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Don't forget yourselves.
Are we done counting? You feel confident? Okay, please put your hands down. What did you get? So at this point, we have either 45 or 47. Okay. If we get close, we will do an Australian ballot or vote again. So now I'm going to ask for all nay votes. And again, those who wish to vote nay will also raise their right hand. All those who wish to vote nay, raise your right hand.
Yeah, I got about 14.
Okay, please put your hands down. All right, friends, the result of that count was 14 days and 46 or 47 yeses. So the article is carried. Thank you for your patience. We now turn to Article 8 to discuss any other non-binding business proper to be done at this time, including the proposed or the proposal to add short-term rentals as defined by the state of Vermont to the list of conditional uses in the Andover zoning regulations. So this, as you know, it's a very hot button topic. And I need clarification from the select board and from Joe, which is basically, are you prepared at this point, based on the will of the meeting, to insert that regulation, to make that a town ordinance?
No.
No.
It's going to be voted.
Okay.
Just to clarify, it's not an ordinance, it is a zoning bylaw. Conditional use, to be added to conditional use.
What seems to me the article does is invite discussion.
Okay.
Not a decision-making article, because as my understanding is that the voters will make a decision based on their preference at tomorrow's Australian ballot.
Okay. So Joe has clarified it is not a binding item. I think that the board simply wants more feedback and input on this issue. For just a little bit of history, very briefly, there have been a number of meetings and a lot of talk about this. So I'm going to encourage you to listen to what your neighbors are saying, and let's try to not repeat. Let's try to illuminate if we can, because we've already gotten a lot of verbiage on this. It's very important to understand what you voters want, but it's a complicated issue, and we will, as Joe clarified, we will have an opportunity to vote on this coming up tomorrow. So, anybody want to weigh in? Gene?
Yeah, I'm still sitting on the fence. I haven't made a decision yet, and I think it's going to be decided by how you answer my question, which is, if this is passed by the voters in Andover and the short-term rentals become a conditional use, in the list of conditional uses, what's the next steps then? What are the conditions in which you will allow someone to have a short-term rental? I think that that's very important to me to understand what the next steps would be. And one additional comment, in the public hearing a couple of weeks ago, Joe Fromberger was kind enough to illuminate us on conditional use, and that it does not go to the homeowner or the property owner. It sits with the land. Is that correct, Joe?
Correct.
So it's a forever thing once it's granted to the land. That's it.
And Joe, if I could just follow up on it, thank you. That is because this is a change in our zoning. Correct. Regulations. So which is the way that we divide up the various uses of town property.
The change as proposed would include short-term rentals as an additional conditional use on a list of about 24 conditional uses that we have listed. One of the things that's unique about Vermont, or Andover really, is that we have no zones. The entire town is an R1 zone. And in order to avoid going with commercial zones or other than R1 zones, the planners, of which I was part 40 years ago, decided to have a list of conditional uses that could be engaged in all R1 zones. So that's where, and there is a list of very specific requirements for obtaining conditional uses. There are five very specific requirements that apply to all conditional uses, conditional use applications. So, and that's why when when I say the conditional use permit, once granted, rides with the land. It is not a grant to an owner. It is an amendment to the ownership of the land itself. So that's where the difference is.
Any other questions for Joe or any other comments? Yes, sir.
I just have a question. So if it winds up not being passed tomorrow, does that mean short-term rentals are not an option? Because right now it's not.
It means that the select board will need to decide how to treat the activity. Because right now, our regulations are silent.
Okay.
So there is no argument that short-term rentals are illegal because we don't have a permit process. So I think if your vote is negative for the inclusion of that, then it becomes a problem for the select board to.
Yeah, that seems challenging from a perspective like probably brainstorm 2 or 3 other things that's not included in those 23, 24.
Right.
So you become either silent or they're not allowed to be used in that capacity.
If we don't regulate it, they're not illegal.
I want to keep the crosstalk to a minimum so people are hearing. Hank had his hand up, and then gentleman back in the corner, so Hank first.
I'd like to talk about, we'll eventually lead into what you're talking about right now. But I would like to ask the select board to deem the town of Andover as a non-sanctuary town. We don't have any police station. We don't have any police whatsoever here. And we're a border town, a border state. And it's taken across into Vermont and New York like crazy. And in New York, people in New York can get a driver's license. I'm not people, aliens, illegal aliens, can get a driver's license. And in fact, little car can get all the money they need. Not that they're going to bother us this time of year, but you wait till the summer when it gets warm. And we get a lot of town land, and we get more people that live on Andover Ridge have a state park right in their backyard. They come here and camp out for the summer with no laws. They can do whatever they want. Nobody's going to bother them. And we don't have any police station. So like, I'm going to tell them, down on Parker Mountain Road, that's all town land. Pristine, nice, beautiful brook runs around through there that you can drink the water. Suppose they start camping out there. What are you going to do to them? How can you get rid of them? They're just going to go in there with no control. And suppose when you get these there's breakfast rooms here in town, now the state of Vermont can come and say, well, you've got to put up some of these people here, because they're doing it up in the big cities with the motels. They're all living, they're all nice and cozy all winter up there, and we're paying for them. It's our money. We're housing these illegal people, and this little town can't afford a policeman for 4 hours a week. There's something wrong here.
So Hank, let me jump in. I think if you know that if we wish to get something before the select board and warning, the process is to get a petition going. What's the number of names, Jeanette, that need to be assigned to petition to get something on the warning? Legally, five names. So I would encourage you.
Okay, that'll be easier to do.
So that's
I'm just going to say, everybody sitting in this room, get a gun. Get a gun, and you can step on the market right now that's non-lethal, and I'll tell you, it will clean the black bears and the illegals off your back porch. They won't kill them, but it'll make them awful sick.
Did you have pointed out the short-term rentals?
What?
We do have a
Yes.
Well, that's what it is. If they open this up for people, they can stay there, then the state can come and say, you gotta put some of these illegal people in here. If they can do it to a motel, they can do it to your house.
Well, I would encourage you to get that on the warning.
So you better learn to protect your ass.
All right, the gentleman in the back here.
Does the select board have a position on the vote tomorrow? To adopt short-term rentals into a conditional use? Or what's the recommendation of the select board?
Susan?
I think I better just speak for myself, but my hope is that we can get some feedback from the townspeople, because this conversation has been going back and forth for a long time. My hope is that we can get some feedback as to whether townspeople would like them regulated or not. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it's a little confusing, because if you wanted an ordinance, you probably would vote against the conditional use. And also, if you didn't want an ordinance, you might vote against a conditional use. It's a non-binding vote, I wanted to point out, and we've grappled with it deeply, and I think we have a lot more grappling to do. And not to, with all due respect to Joe, I think that there is still some confusion about whether this conditional use, if it were to be passed, would go with the property or the property owner. I'm not so sure that it's so cut and dry. I mean, we haven't consulted an attorney, and I have heard versions of it where it would go with the property owner rather than the property. It seems a little extreme to me to go with the property. It doesn't seem to serve the purpose of communication between neighbors. But I'm not really, I don't know. It's for us to get more information from you, I think. I don't know that we don't have a stated position as a group that I know about it.
And we, from the beginning, this has been on our plate since we all became select board members, and we have said all along that we wanted to come to the people, we wanted to come to you with something and hear what you wanted to do. So we haven't really stated what we all are voting, what our vote would be. It's more along the lines that we'd like to know what everyone else would like. We want to hear from all of you.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't it be more appropriate for the select board to state out its position, either whether it's you agree or independently you disagree, so the voters can have some idea what they're voting on?
I'm going to speak here as a citizen and voter, not moderator. Having gone to some of the hearings, not all of them, I think one of the background challenges is that we have no mechanism for, I'll say, compliance, not really enforcement, but really compliance. So we've had some trouble in town, and folks have spoken about problems in various neighborhoods and on various roads with homes that have not been managed well, with guests from out of town coming and not being respectful and not being safe and not being healthy. And so that raises the question, do we want to be a healthy town, do we want to be safe, et cetera? Which I think is something everybody has in common here. Then the question is, to Joe's point, we are, anybody renting anything, anybody doing anything other than basically, correct me Joe, farming and logging is essentially in non-compliance currently. And then go another question, which is how do we engage with the compliant issue? How do we offer compliance? How do we make sure that people are compliant? So that's a little bit of background, probably not helping anybody very much, but I've seen these folks wrestle with this for 4 years, and the problem starts with the fact that we have a very sort of blank slate, open slate in terms of the town jurisdictions. Yeah.
Well, I can only offer one opinion. It's a slippery slope if you begin to start considering getting a covenant to run with the land to solve individual problem homes doing things that are outside the bounds of decency, whatever label you want to put on it. I just think that you have to have a better structure to examine the issue of what you're trying to prohibit versus what will be prohibited by legislation or adoption or ordinance, or worse, a covenant running with the land will do on everybody's property here.
And just some more additional history. In the past, our elected, non-paid elected constable has had to deal with some really challenging interpersonal neighborhood issues involving personal safety, safety of animals, et cetera, way beyond his interest and pay grade. I'm not sure what our current constable has done in terms of interacting on calls with this.
Oh, I mean, I definitely have. It's been a range of different calls and new calls like that. I've got that stuff all the time. You get a lot of calls about a lot of dogs and stuff and things like that. But it's definitely, it seems like it's a more localized issue than a big general issue over everybody in the town. For households.
And so one of the things that I think the select board wrestled with is you basically have volunteer constables, unpaid, who are taking time out of their busy lives and volunteering. If you're going to be engaging in some pretty tricky diplomatic situations, a problematic guest, a problematic host, people who shouldn't be in a place, or doing things that they shouldn't be doing, that sort of ups the ante. So I think the board has wrestled with, and I don't want to speak for the board, but trying to create a place to stand, to go forward. And it has seemed, as I've listened to them, that it's a chicken and egg situation. First, there has to be a basic ordinance, and then you can think about how one would deal with compliance. Yeah.
I'm going to say, I want to say something as a citizen, not for the rest of the board. I can say, and this is to your question, sir, back there, all the way in the back, as a citizen and a resident of Andover, I can say that this board, particularly, we have wrestled and struggled with this. We understand that there is an area in town, that there are some short-term rentals, and there have been difficulties with this area. And as Lucas Trask spoke to just a second ago, the issue is also for us, though, that the Andover is full of all of you as well. And so for me, everything that we've looked at around the short-term rental has been frustrating because, for me personally, I am not in the business of wanting to take away people's rights. And when someone moves here from somewhere else, or whether you're someone who's owned your grandmother's home and your family's been here for 1,000 years, or you just got here 3 years ago and you now have a short-term rental, you have a right to your property. And within reason and the law for the state of Vermont, my feeling is that you have the right to do with it what you want to do. Now, we do not have a sheriff here in town. We don't have a police presence. You can always call the state police if you're having trouble, or in the most Vermont way possible, because I know the state police will take a while to get there, but in the most Vermont way possible, you can pick up your phone or walk next door or say to somebody, hey, it was too loud over the weekend, or there was trash, or whatever that is. As a governing body, I feel like we all have had these conversations to say, where can we do the best job around short-term rentals for everyone in town, right? Where do we come to that middle place where everybody is getting sort of a little bit of what they need without their rights being trampled? And so the reason that we have, and I can say this, the reason that we have not just done an ordinance is because we feel like that would just be painting everyone with the same really broad brush around short-term rentals. Because there's a ton of short-term rentals in Andover that are just fine and no one's complaining about them, right? So for us, having this possibility, because we don't know exactly what it will look like fully, but we just wanted to bring it to the town to say, would you want us to put it under the conditional use? Because then at least it's going to fall under not only what we have for conditional use, but also it would then be even more firmly implanted in the rules that Vermont already sets down. And so we aren't asking, we don't want to make that decision for the whole group. That's what it would be. So you'd sort of be voting, on saying, either if you vote no, then you don't want us to do anything about short-term rentals, you just want people to have the right.
See, now I don't see it that way.
You don't?
No.
I don't. But if you vote no, then you don't necessarily want that kind of, you don't want it to come into play. If you vote yes.
What's the result of a vote of no versus a vote of yes?
That's a really good question. So my concern is, as Joe had said, that it goes with the land. I put my feelers out to ask that very question and got kind of an ambiguous answer. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You need to contact your town lawyer and ask them. Personally, how do I feel about that? I don't think that it's a good idea to have the conditional use that goes to the land under short-term rental. I'll say that outright. I just don't think it is. I think that you're then putting a piece of property into the mix that's going to carry something with it forever. If indeed we could instead have the permit written up, and I don't know that we can do this. This is an issue that we're trying to figure out. If indeed we could have a permit written up that it goes with the owner as opposed to the land, then you all may feel more comfortable with the idea of putting it under conditional use. But an unfortunate aspect of that right now at this voting stage is that we don't know that answer completely. I can say that I know Joe has said that it does go with the land. When I talked to the VLCT, they had said that it's something being asked across the state right now. I don't want to sit here and tell you that it wouldn't go with the land.
Let me just restate the article, the question that you'll be voting on tomorrow, just to remind you what it is. You'll vote on this tomorrow. Shall the voters approve adding, quote, short-term rentals, close quote, as defined by the state of Vermont to the list of conditional uses in Andover zoning regulations? So that's what's going to be on your ballot tomorrow. I think maybe Paul first, and then we'll come back to
this. I feel that the conditional use question is, and it's very similar to an ordinance question. Both of these instruments are going to require enforcement, and we don't have the capabilities to enforce ordinances or the zoning changes. I've been asked about registry. I may have missed this in some of the things. Do we have a short-term registry in Andover? So it seems like many towns are just using a registry as an initial way to get an idea of what's happening in the town and where it's happening. It also allows somebody who's having a problem with a house or a neighbor's house to contact the town hall and say, is this a full-time residence or is this a short-term rental registry? It's informational. It's helpful. That can carry forth then to enforcement, which may need to involve the state police. If we vote for an ordinance or a zoning change, we're going to impose those changes on all residents in town, as many have said, and we don't want to limit what we can all do with our land. So, in my opinion, it's a no vote.
Mark, and then
first of all, I want to register my appreciation for Select Board Member Trask for amplifying the nebulous or the uncertainty of what the conditional use goes to, the property owner or the property. I appreciate it because it raises the following question. Are we being asked to vote on an ordinance issue in the absence of clarity? Are we really? I'm sorry, a zoning issue, my mistake, my bad. I don't think that anyone should be voting in the absence of clarity. What is it that we're voting towards? And if we are uncertain about that, why would we navigate into those waters? So I would vote no until clarity, and then maybe no for some other reason, but no today.
Maybe Jill and then Lenore.
Well, I just want to know if the conditional usage, you have 5 specific clauses or whatever it is. Is that what those particular clauses would apply to short-term rental? I mean, they don't all seem appropriate, really.
As you can see, those are 5 conditions that apply to all conditional use. You know, the issue of whether
Did everybody in the room see these?
No, can you read them?
Okay, I'm going to read them off. So number 1, the capacity of existing and planned community facilities. Number 2, the character of the area affected. Number 3, traffic on roads and highways in the vicinity. Number 4, bylaws then in effect. Number 5, utilization of renewable energy resources.
So what I'm really saying is all of those conditions apply to every one of the conditional uses that are listed. On the issue of whether it goes with the land or not, I can only point out to you that when we have conditional use that permits a restaurant, it does not go with the owner. It goes with the property. So the issue is not, in my mind, whether it goes with the land or not. It goes with the land because every other conditional use that we grant goes with the land. So there is no way that we can, as a Board of Adjustment, add an additional condition that says it is time limited. We cannot do that. So,
it just seems that conditions are a little bit vague when it comes to short-term rentals. They don't necessarily apply. So if we're voting to put it into a conditional use, the conditional uses that are listed are vague and not applying perhaps to short-term rentals.
What I'm going to do is remind those orders that they're not voting on this article tonight. This is a return trip to the town hall. I saw Lenore's hand up, and then maybe someone over here. Let's take Lenore, and then Maddie, and then 1 or 2 from here. And then I'm going to suggest let's do that. And then what I'm going to propose to you is that because we're not voting now, we really only have one other bit of business, which is to entertain a motion for dismissal. I would encourage you to essentially talk among yourselves and share information. Talk to Joe, talk to the select board, find out more about how they arrived at the wording of this motion or this potential vote tomorrow. And then vote as you wish. Maddie, if you can go, and then we'll come back over this way.
Sure. I just wanted to say there's 2 things. One is my understanding about how short-term rentals can be regulated all has to start with putting a definition of short-term rentals in our planning and zoning documents. And that's part of what we're voting on tomorrow, the thing that's on page 36 of that handout out there. My understanding is without that, nothing else can be done. The other thing is, this conversation has been super confusing. If I hadn't had a tiny bit of background before, I think I'd be even more confused than I am now. I'm pretty confused. But we've been talking about two different tracks, right? There's dealing with short-term rentals through zoning, which is what we're voting on tomorrow. There's another thing, regulating short-term rentals through an ordinance, which is a completely different topic, which we're not voting on tomorrow. So I just was hoping to clarify a little bit that for me, I'm a little afraid because I'm sitting here next to Jill and she says she's finding this confusing, and I know she's been on the planning commission for decades, or was on the planning commission for decades, but for me, the process is pretty clear. Like, it's a train track. Like, if you understand that track, you understand that track. It's not super vague or weird. It's just what it is.
Let's go to this gentleman sitting here next to Patty.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's pretty clear what happens if the vote is no. But what happens if the vote is yes?
Then
Then we'll discuss it again next year.
The select board initiates adding short-term rentals to our town list of conditional uses under the zoning regulations.
So they initiate that. What's the process after that for it? Is there a further vote, or is that then on the select track?
As I see it, if the voters approve adding the conditional use to the list of the short-term rentals to the conditional use list, then the select board will have a public hearing on the specifics. For instance, on if they say a permit is required, is there a timeline by which all of the existing short-term rentals have to apply for? It would not be very well received, I think, if everyone has to have a permit next week, because the Board of Adjustment couldn't be working on all of those. There is about 25 of them right now, as I understand. So if we had 25 applications, we wouldn't be good. So there would be it would have to be a time limit by which the select board decides it would have to be effective. And there may be other things that they would like to. They cannot, however, and I've researched that, we cannot add a time limit.
A time limit to what, Joe?
Pardon?
A time limit to what?
To the permit.
In other words, the permit
permit
time has to be in perpetuity.
The permit rides with the land.
Okay.
So as a practical matter, though, the board would hold another hearing. There would be further discussion, or would the board be empowered at that point to decide how things go, or whether they go at all?
So my understanding is the way I saw this taking place, and this is all new to all of us, as far as all these towns around here are jumping in and then jumping out and pulling back what they put in and coming up with different ideas. It was brought to us by, I believe you, Joe, that it could be put under conditional use. And so at that point, we thought, good idea, let's bring it to the voters. And then at another meeting, it was brought to us that, well, by the way, if it is under conditional use, it rides with the land. When I personally heard that, I'm like, wait a minute, I wish I would have known that ahead of time, because that's a big step. That is a huge step. And to me, I want to know more about that. I want to know the legalities of that, because I'm not real comfortable with it riding with the land.
So is the board bound to put it into the conditional use list?
If we vote yes, I don't know that. I wish I had the answer to that question, and that is a very good question, because I wish I would have known that in the beginning. And I'm sorry that I don't, because we should know that.
Chris would like to clarify something, I believe.
The fact is that the board has the right, the power to put forth an ordinance or zoning. We can approve it either way, without the taxpayers' input.
Got
The state just changed that, to give us the power to do that. So we don't want to do that, we want your opinion.
Very good.
So,
Thank you.
I'm going to entertain.
It's Lenore's turn.
I'm going to entertain 2 more questions. So Lenore, or let's go Hank, and then Lenore.
There has to be some kind of a control for the board. Because if you don't, they'll take it. You can get away with having a 3-bedroom house and put 20 people in that. It's not going to fit the septic system. And the Board of Health in this town, and you guys, you're going to have to enforce this. The only way you can do that is to put some boundaries on this. There's got to be some kind of control for you people that live next to them, and the Board of Health, the selectmen. So there's got to be some kind of laws on this, or they'll go out of control, because everybody's so greedy for money, they'll take a 3-bedroom house and put 20 people in there if they can get away with it. So you've got to have some kind of control.
And that falls into the definition of short-term rental.
Yes.
And, you know, if you read on all of what it is and proposed
you
in the
people are
zoning,
the Board of Health in this town.
But it goes back to what you're saying, that gives you that 2 people more than 2 per bedroom. It already goes over that in the definition of short-term.
Yeah,
because it goes off of state regs. Emergency windows, smoke
approve the
detectors.
house and the septic system for the house. If it's got 5 bedrooms, well, you have a bigger septic system. You only have 2 bedrooms, you only have one this big, right?
Hold on. Thank you, Hank. Lenore.
Due respect, I've only been on the zoning board for 1 decade, Joe. But I can tell you in that decade, Rowland's Inn changed hands without requesting a permit because it was already a conditional use. And there was a restaurant that wanted to open, Esmeralda, hugely successful, and 9 neighbors came out and said, no, please, not on our terrible road. And we said, we have no choice. It's a conditional use. Let's try and make it possible for you to love it. Luckily, the restaurant only wanted 12 weekends a year. What if they had wanted 52? I don't know. We told them they had to have a certain amount of parking. We put that condition on it based on the number of guests that they were going to entertain in their restaurant. And all I can tell you is we don't have many choices. It is written. Rowell's Inn, you can make an inn there in perpetuity. You want to make an inn next to my house? You can do that after there's a hearing, the neighbors get together, they say, please don't, and we, the zoning board, say, it's a conditional use. We have to let you, we just have to hope that we can work it out. You may remember there was going to be a pot farm. All hell broke loose. It was going to be a conditional use. Now it's out of our hands because it's farming. Thank goodness, because we had to say yes. Because we had to treat it as if it was hothouses for geraniums. And that was, we had to say yes. All we could do is put some conditions. And maybe some of you are aware of what went on. It was terrible. So the idea that the neighbors have opinions about whether or not this is going to be to their liking, they have opinions. And we can hope that when we get together, the person who wants the permit will be nice about it, and that the conditions we put on it are legal. And one of those conditions is not no. So if you want to have a condition, and as a member of the board, I'm voting against it. I don't think this is the way to go. And to clarify what Maddie was saying, we proposed this a year ago. This was a zoning change that had all the details that you would want.
We proposed it, we had meetings about it. People who came said, I don't know, it says no weddings. I think people should be allowed to have weddings. And then we took the weddings out, we gave it to the select board, and the select board wants it to be a zoning regulation because they want the town, as I understand it, to have the vote. If it's zoning in any form, it's a vote. Although I might have heard that that just was changed. If it's an ordinance, they decide. They want to give us the opportunity. I don't think conditional use is the way to go. All your questions can be answered in a detailed zoning change. And what we had here was application requirements, the people who live next to weddings have nobody to call. Right now, that person might be a corporation in California. We're not looking in this list of suggested zoning changes for any limit on the number. Some towns are limiting the number. And that goes to your question about telling me what to do in my house. We're not looking to tell anybody they can't do it. We're just looking to say there are regulations that have to do with inns, that have to do with fire and not your private home, and all these other things we'd like to have. It says that we'd like you not to have, and this is, this is suggested wording, but some people worked for years on it based on what other towns are doing. I didn't do the work. Outdoor activities prohibited between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And yeah, you can't stop me from doing that because I live there. But if I have a business, you can say your business can't be open past a certain hour. Nobody says the restaurant can be open all night. So we can, in the zoning regulation, have a complete package. We are not looking at that in this vote. We are looking at a step that is so full of questions and so full of loosey-goosey possibilities that I think either we need an ordinance where we have a difference between hosted and unhosted, where if it's unhosted, they're paying a bigger fee, maybe $200 a year. A fee has to be there. You need a permit. Yes, we can't enforce it, but we have a lot of rules we can't enforce. We don't enforce anything. Let's not make that the reason we don't make the rules.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to call on Robin, and then I'm going to suggest that some of you members of the Planning Commission have identified yourself, and we certainly know other folks who have expertise and knowledge. I think we're at the point in this conversation, if I can be so bold as to say, we need to fold this meeting, but then begin to get more information and dial this in a little bit more defined way. I'll give Robin the last word, and then I will entertain a motion for dismissal.
So, Lenore, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. The zoning board did bring us a list of recommendations. We took it to the lawyer, who said, poked holes all over in it, and said, there are so many illegal things here that we suggest you take a whole look at your zoning bylaws. And as far as the short-term rental aspect of it, it really did get a lot of holes poked in it, and things that would end up being illegal for us to do, or could be brought up. People could challenge it. So that's why we haven't put the piece of paper that they worked very hard on, very, very hard on, into effect, because we were told that it wasn't a good idea. And we brought it to legal counsel, and that's what they said. And we have, as a board, I mean, that's my take on it, and I would like anyone else on the board to give their take on it. But that was my take on it.
Very briefly.
Briefly.
Yeah.
So briefly, I just want to concur with what Robin is saying. And Lenore, we took what the zoning board gave us, and we said, okay, there's a lot here. We were sort of ready ourselves in a way to accept it. I think we were open-minded about that. The meeting that we had and what we got back from the attorney was, frankly, for me personally, terrifying. Because it was like, listen, you can't do all of these things constitutionally to people who own property in your town. So we were shocked. We were sort of like, ooh, okay, so I'm going to keep this short. But when Robin says that, all of us, and the woman was on the phone with us, and then the attorney, and then she sent it to us with lots of red lines in it. And when I say lots of red lines, I mean it looked like something that you would get from Congress when they wanted to black it all out. And so we stopped at that point and said, oh, okay, we can't just move forward willy-nilly with this. And then it started to come to our attention that other towns were getting sued for doing what our attorney stopped us from doing. So this is how we got to, and we weren't just ignoring you.
What
can we do? So we're now going at it with the attorney being involved. And I'll stop talking right there.
All right, well, thank you all for your patience. Unless there is another bit of critical business, I would now entertain a motion for adjournment. Barry.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Barry has made a motion to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.